Hi, this is James Cook of the University of Maine at Augusta, and this is part 5 in a series of videos explaining how to take a small, very inexpensive computer called a Raspberry Pi, how to set up the hardware and the software associated with this computer to turn it into a social media data mining and data analysis platform that you can use for any number of applications in business, in activism, in formal politics, or in informal social interaction. Like I said, this is the 5th video in this series, so if you're coming to this video and you haven't seen the steps before, you might want to take a look at video number 1. Video number 1 describes how to set up the hardware. Video 2 describes how to set up the software of the operating system called Raspbian. Video number 3 explains how to work with the two environments, the desktop graphic user interface, and also a text-based terminal that has Linux at its core. The 4th video in this series explains how you can go about installing R, which is a research piece of software that's very flexible and can be used to analyze data in a number of aspects. This is part 5, and part 5 today we're going to talk about how to use an already installed program called Python on your Raspberry Pi, how to update it with a funny sounding but very powerful module called Tweepy, and how to use Tweepy to collect actual social media information from Twitter. This is the week where the rubber hits the road, where all the preparation we've had up to this point moves into action, and I'm really excited to share this piece with you. So the first part of today's work is for you to install Tweepy on your Raspberry Pi. And to do this, you should start your terminal, and in that terminal, the text-based interface, you should type in sudo, which we know stands for super user do, apt-get install python-setup tools. Python-setup tools is, not surprisingly, a nice package that allows you to add to Python with additional setup tools. So then we're going to use it in the second command. And we're going to do something called sudo again, easy underscore install for an easy installation of something called pip. And pip will in turn, in step 3, allow us to install this package of Python, this additional module called Tweepy. And to do that, you will simply type in sudo pip install Tweepy. Tweepy sounds really funny. It looks like a funny word. It's a little silly sounding to say, but it stands for, the PY stands for Python, and Twee stands for tweets or Twitter use in Python. And it is a set of commands in Python that allow you to look at tweets as long as you're authorized to do so. And that's where we get to step 2. In which you need to get a Twitter app. Now that sounds complicated, it sounds highfalutin, but it's not really. You just need to follow, well, about 11 steps. But don't worry, those steps are really quite quick. The first thing you need to do is you need to sign up for a Twitter account. This does not mean you have to share what you had for breakfast. It doesn't mean you ever have to make a single post on Twitter. But if you want to access Twitter information and get an app to do that, an application with permissions to do that, you need to sign up for an account. So go to twitter.com and sign up for an account. Once you've done that, then you need to go to a special part of Twitter called apps.twitter.com. There you should find a button that says create new app. Click it and fill out the form, all the fields in the form that you find after you click that button. Then there's another button that says create your Twitter application. Click that button. And then there's another link. It says manage keys and access tokens. And this is the important part, the really important part. Click that link, because what you're going to do is you're going to get some information, a consumer key and a consumer secret, and an access token and an access token secret that are going to allow you to access data. These sound like really funny things. What the heck is a consumer key? What is an access token? And what are these secrets that are associated with them? But you can just think of them as essentially usernames and passwords. They tell Twitter when they receive this message from this strange Python program that they shouldn't worry, it's okay, it's connected to an authorized user, that's you, and that they've been authorized, you have been authorized to get that information. If it turns out you're doing it for nefarious purposes, they can track it back to you. But don't worry, you won't be doing that, right? You're just going to be collecting some information on Twitter posts that are already public. And you are going to need to generate then a consumer key and an access token and these strings of text that look funny but are secrets that are associated with them that are kind of like passwords. So when you click the Manage Keys and Access Tokens link, you should obtain a consumer key and a consumer secret. It's a string of text. You should copy and paste that. You should probably print it somewhere in case you lose it and put it in a desk somewhere. That's very secure. And then you're going to need to click one more link that says, it's a button actually under token actions that says create my access token. As you can see this in the additional window in this video. At that point, you should also copy down the access token and the access token secret, and also your owner ID. Just to have that all in one place, you're going to be putting that in a program that you're going to write in just a few minutes. And that's the next step, writing down a Python script. Okay, so to do that, it's not that hard. It's just a series of lines of text that are each giving a command. And as long as we don't focus too much on the idea of program or programming, and instead just think of this as the text equivalent of pointing and clicking on menus in like a word processor document or a spreadsheet or something like that, hopefully you won't find the experience too difficult. Because that's really all that programming is the giving of very specific commands to a computer and telling it exactly what to do. If you're good at ordering people around, then you can be good at ordering a computer around. You just have to be a little bit more specific because, frankly, computers are still quite a bit less intelligent than human beings. So to write your Python program, also called a Python script by some people, you should open up your terminal again, and then you should type in Pico, P-I-C-O. That's a very tiny word processor for the Raspberry Pi, and then a space, and then the name of your program. And it should be something like my first Python program, or sample Tweepy script, something like that, .py. The .py tells the computer, oh, this is a Python program. And then hit enter or return, and you should enter into that word processing environment called Pico, which really is just a place where you can type in text. And you should enter the following lines. The first is import Tweepy, and that is simply saying, hey, let's bring in this module and work with it. Let's work with the capabilities that it has. And then you're going to want to type in your consumer key. You're going to want to type in your consumer secret. You're going to want to type in your access token and your access token secret. And to do that and to tell the computer what it is, you're going to have two sides of an equation. Okay, on one side of the equation is going to be the actual consumer key and consumer secret. You notice I'm not sharing mine with yours in this video. And you shouldn't share yours with anyone else either, because then if they use it for nefarious purposes or spread it around, you could get in trouble. So on the right-hand side is that actual key, put in quotation marks. On the left-hand side is a label for what that is. And in programming, it's called a variable. So you're setting a variable. You say, I'm going to have a variable called consumer key. You can think of it as a label. It's something that they should pay attention to. And you're telling the computer what the name of it is, because you're going to use that name elsewhere. And then you tell it what the consumer key is. So in this instance, the equal sign really means is. Okay, it's assigning a value to the consumer key, to the consumer secret, to the access token, and to the access token secret. And then there's going to be just 2 more lines of magic to set things up. And you can think of these as magic. You don't have to understand every letter, but basically what these 2 auth commands do, auth equals tweepy.oauth handler, parenthesis consumer key, consumer secret, and parenthesis, and the one below it for the access token and the access token secret. You can think of those as magic words that say, open sesame. Here, I want my access now, and here's my usernames and my passwords. Just like you would do this in a browser if you wanted to log into Amazon.com. It's no more complicated than that. And then the last line you need to have is to say, and make it so, make it happen, let's go forward, let's do something with this, is API equals tweepy.api, parenthesis, auth. And that's just another set of magic words that opens the door. Everything that happens after that point is where the real magic begins. So at this point, you should be adding in lines of some code for your Python script. And we'll be talking about what those lines are. And what those lines are going to be is going to vary based on what you're interested in grabbing from Twitter and what you're interested in doing with those lines. Today we're going to just talk about how to get certain pieces of information about a user, information about particular tweets by a particular user, and how to print those out.
Now, in the rest of this video, you'll notice that we use print statements. These print statements are used to enter comments for us so that we will really understand what it is that we've been doing if we always go back and check. So the first print statement, which is simply used by typing print and then a parenthesis and a quote and then text and then an end parenthesis and an end quote, talks about what this section of the code is going to do. It's going to show that my own Twitter user account information. Now, by my own, I mean me as the person who owns the consumer key and the consumer secret. And the access token and the access token secret. And so to do that, I'm going to create a variable called my underscore account, and it's going to equal an API command called API me. And then once I get that information that's stored in there, I'm going to want to get parts of that account information. So I'll get part of my account that is name, and so that would be called my underscore account dot name. Then I'll want to print some text, and the text will say my location, and I'll put an end quote, and then I'll say plus outside the quotes so that it doesn't include literally the text my underscore account dot location, but it'll include whatever that information is, which in my case will equal Augusta, Maine. Then I can get some more information. Whenever I use that account, or that command, my underscore account equals API.me, and then the parentheses, it's going to obtain friends count. So you'll notice in this case, it's going to be a string. So I use the magic word keystrokes str with that. These are just little habits that you have to learn, and you learn them by example, and then you become comfortable with them. And then you can also get the count of your followers. Now, that's all well and good. You can find out about yourself, but probably you already know about yourself just by logging into your account, right? You might want to find out something a little bit more interesting. So we're going to put in 3 equal signs to indicate a new section, and then a description saying, hey, let's write a new section of code that will show the most recent retweets of your own, in this case, my own, tweets. And tweets are Twitter posts. So that's new information that you might not be aware of. What are the retweets that are most recent of your own communications? So to get that, you would create a variable, say me retweeted, and that would equal api.retweets _ me parentheses. And then you're going to want to say, hey, let's look through each one of those. And to do that, you would say for tweet in me _ retweeted, which means for every tweet that is in that result that you get, let's print something about the tweet, right? What about the tweet? Well, we would say, let's look at when it was created, and let's look at the text. And to do that, we would use the command print tweet.createdAt and tweet.text. Now, those two results are describing something about you, maybe something you already know and is obvious, or maybe something you didn't know, like retweets. But what about a section that would show similar kind of information for any Twitter user? What if you wanted to just have a general command that said, I don't just want to find out about me, I want to find out about someone else? Well, if we take similar information, but use a slightly different command, we can find out about others. And instead of using api.me, we can say, hey, let's set a variable user equal to the results of the command api.get_user, and then in parentheses, whatever user you had in mind. In this case, we're going to get the information for the user Augusta, the official Twitter account of the University of Maine at Augusta. So in this section, we're not going to use the command api.me because we're not interested in the user who has the consumer key. We're interested in someone else, another user. So we'll say user equals api.get_user, and then we'll put in quotes any account. In this case, we'll put in the account name Augusta, the official account of the University of Maine at Augusta. Then what will we print? Well, it's going to look very similar to what was above for your own account. We'll want to type in a name, but then we'll say we're going to add plus user.name, whatever that user is. We'll be interested in location, and that will be user because the variable is different, user.location. Print following me, in quotes, end quote, plus user dot string user dot friends _ count. And finally, print followers, and that's plus string parenthesis user dot friends _ followers _ count. And that's going to tell us something about any user. Then finally, in a last section, we could not just get account information about any user, but we could have a new section of code that might show the most recent, not retweets, but the most recent tweets of any user. So to obtain that, we'll put in a label describing that section. This section will show the most recent tweets of any user. Now you'll notice I misspelled a letter here, or word, most. That'll come up later. But we're going to now type in user _ tweets equals api dot user _ timeline. And we can type in any user account there. I've just used the example of Augusta, the official University of Maine at Augusta Twitter account. You could put in any Twitter account there. And then we're going to say for each of the tweets that we see in the results, and the results are user _ tweets, what are we going to want to do? For each of those, we're going to run a print the variables tweet, and then the part of the tweet that is when it was created, and then part of the tweet that is the text of the tweet. And that's that. So when we run this program, what will we see? Let's take a look. Here are the results of running the program, which we would run by typing Python and then a space and then the name of our file, which in this case is myfirsttweepy.py. You'll notice here that there is the text name at the top, and then it provides my name, the text location, and then Augusta, Maine. The number of people following me on Twitter, 403. The number of followers I have, 410. And then there's, you'll notice the 3 equal signs, and then a part that says this section will show the most recent retweets of my own tweets. And what does it do for each portion? Inside parentheses, it describes 2 sets of variables. A variable is just a piece of information, the value of which can vary. The first variable is something called date time, which is a combination of the date and the time. The first number in date time is the year, and then the month, and then the day, and then the hour in 24-hour notation, and then the minute, and then the second of the original tweet that was retweeted by somebody else. Then you'll notice text, and that is the text of the tweet itself. Now moving on, in the next section, the next 2 sections, we see the same kind of information provided for just about any Twitter user. In this case, the Twitter user with the name UMA, but the account handle Augusta. It also is located in Augusta, Maine, and it has 453 followers, and is following 453 others, and it has 683 followers. And then we have the text that we said we wanted to have printed out, including 3 equal signs to show that there's a split in the section, and then the text. This section will show the most recent tweets of any user, and it does. So this is a real headache to look at. It's a real bear to look at in a way, but regardless of that, it's actual data that we can work with. In the future installations of this video series, we're going to think about how it is that you might actually work with this data and turn it into a form that isn't so ugly to look at, isn't so overwhelming in its text.
In future weeks, we'll talk about how to store that information and how to use that information to find out things about the Twitter users that nobody else in the whole universe possibly knows.